All righty. I think we're recording now. But hey, everybody, welcome back to the channel. I would normally do this in person, but good old Corona forces us to do this over the computer. So I hope this goes well. Um, but I'm back with Christina, and we're going to talk about the idea of, do we need to advocate for ourselves? Do we need to be the voices for change? And personally, I think we do. Um, I think it's up to all of us individually to express our needs, because all of our needs aren't the same. So it's hard to do uh, cover all. Um, and that's kind of hard, or what used to be hard. I don't know. I feel like it's always been easy for you, Christina, but
How do you mean?
well, you just always seem to be very independent and, not afraid to, stick up for what you needed, especially going abroad. You really had to make sure they had what you needed. And
Well, yeah, I've had to, because when you're somewhere where you don't necessarily speak the language completely fluently, you need something, you're gonna find a way to ask for it. And I guess the whole reason why this video topic came up is I read an article, and I'm not gonna remember who wrote it now, but it asked
okay.
if those of us with disabilities felt like we needed to educate others about disability. And for me, that kind of goes along with what you're saying about advocating for ourselves and making sure that we get what we need. I think by being advocates, we in turn are educating others
Right.
about the fact that we with disabilities can do things.
Yeah, and I guess in a way, that's kind of what this channel has been about. Um, it's been about me sharing my experiences, but the hope is that someone will learn something from my videos that they didn't know before, or didn't think about, even if they don't have a disability and they're just, casually watching, um, to maybe understand, if they run into someone with a disability, how to respond to a certain situation, how to relate to them, and see that disability isn't really, it doesn't make you any different, I guess I should say.
I totally agree. Yeah, we do a lot, whether we want to or not, to educate others about disability just by doing what we do. Because I think one of the misconceptions that people have about disability comes from not knowing someone with a disability and not being able to relate to them about that,
The
you know?
thing I want people to understand, though, is just because you can't relate to someone with a disability because you don't have a disability, doesn't mean you can't relate to that person at all. That person with a disability and the person who is temporarily able-bodied could relate on so many other things that don't have to do anything with disability. Favorite music, books, movies, hobbies. But
Right.
I feel like a lot of people think, well, I don't have a disability, so we can't relate, but that's just not true. I mean,
Right. And I think that's part of the reason why those with disabilities are sometimes a little bit marginalized from other groups, because people are like, oh, I'm not like them, so I don't have anything in common with them. I can't relate to them. And that's just so not true. Like you said, there are so many different assets to a person's personality. The disability doesn't have to be something that you have in common to get to know someone. In fact, it's better because you learn from them that way.
And, well, this used to be me. I used to feel like my disability was all of me, but a disability is only part of a person. I mean, it's not like you're cerebral palsy who's named Tina, and I'm cerebral palsy that's named Kyle. It's like
right.
Tina and Kyle, and we had cerebral palsy, but we do many other things and enjoy many other things. And
exactly,
it's a small part of our life.
It doesn't define who we are. I read something that I really liked a while back, and it said, I am just as disabled as I am brown-haired, blue-eyed, short, yada, yada, yada. It went on with all of these adjectives. And I really, really liked that because it just shows that disability is one facet of a personality. And, it doesn't make up the whole person, but people definitely notice it about us. And that comes back to, why I think that we need to do our best to show disability in a positive light. Because some people that we know might only know us as having a disability, and they don't know others with disabilities. So we need to make sure that we're representing it well, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I used to think I was all disability at one point, and it's definitely gotten less. But since I've started the channel, it is a big part of me now, but in the way of I wanting to educate people that disability doesn't look one certain way. And, my way is just specific to me. And even though you have cerebral palsy too, like, it's different for you.
Yeah, it is. And that's the hard part too, because people generalize. And although you want to educate people on disability, people can talk about disability, people have you as an example of someone with disability, we're not all the same. So
yeah,
I feel like our job is never done educating people about disability because everybody's different.
No, because I don't want someone watching one of my videos to think like, well, he can do certain thing. Why can't you if they meet somebody else? It's like, well, because disability affects every person differently, and I just kind of got lucky in certain things. And I mean, I hate to say get lucky, but that's the way I feel sometimes, that like it's just kind of the way things have unfolded. I mean, it could have been completely different.
Yeah, I've thought about that at various points in my life, being a teacher, being bilingual. I get a lot of comments sometimes about how lucky I am to be doing what I'm doing. And I get that, and sometimes it strikes me a little weird. But it is a fortunate situation, that I've been able to have the intelligence to make the decisions that I've made for me to be able to reach my goals.
Yeah, and I do somewhat feel responsible to those that either aren't ready to educate others or, can't express themselves as much as I can. That's not to say that I have to do it, but, everyone wants to be represented and listened to, and if I can help in some way, then that's what I'd like to do.
Sure. And I think for me, kids come into mind because they're someone who might not be able to ask all the right questions at a young age or know how to ask about that, but we can still educate them about it to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, we can help them come up with questions or how to ask certain questions. And then they can use those going forward. Um, so I think the more we talk to kids about disability now, the better our future will be for the disability community, because the more knowledgeable people are, the more accepting they can be. Um, because, at least in my opinion, when you aren't educated on something, it tends to scare you because you don't know what it involves or what is going to happen. But once you do know it, the fear goes away.
Definitely. Knowledge is definitely power when it comes to something like this that is so broad and can be difficult for people to understand and know how to ask about.
Yeah, I mean, no one's for sure like going to know how to handle every situation by watching my video, but if it helps, you know, anyone, anytime, in any situation, you're constantly going to have to educate yourself. I'm constantly educating myself, and I'm a part of the disability community, but I don't know everything. I know my experiences, and I know some of yours from what you've shared with me, but there's a lot I don't know.
Well, and I think, the good thing about all this is being open is going to allow all of us to learn about things. That there are disabilities out there that I don't know anything about, but I know about cerebral palsy, and that's something that I can educate people on. But yeah, I think we all have more to learn, always.
And part of that also boils down to communication. Um, when you don't know something about a certain disability, you can Google it, but I mean, the best case scenario is to find someone who does live with it and is knowledgeable about it to talk to them. I mean, it's very easy to read medical definitions on the internet, but
True.
you know, best case scenario is, being fortunate enough to find somebody that has that disability to actually tell you what it's like to live with it.
Right, because a diagnosis does not make a person. I mean,
Right.
we're more than the diagnosis. So,
I can understand how it could be a little intimidating to want to be an educator of disability, because it's it's a lot. It's You don't want to come off like too knowledgeable, or like I know everything about disability. Like you should listen to me. Um, so you have to be careful of, if you're trying to, just give your stance on it as to like this is the stance on it, because it's your stance and my stance are completely different.
right. I do think I agree with you that it is a big responsibility. I mean, I feel like we're both kind of on the same wavelength here, that we think that we need to, do our best to educate others about disability, but at the same time, that's a big responsibility. I mean, I think about my students and how I might be the only person in their life, above the age of 65, let's say, with any kind of disability. So whether I like it or not, let's say I am a model or an example of disability for them.
Yeah, and the hope, I think for you maybe is, they've seen me, they've experienced it a little bit, and the next time they see someone that has a disability that either is cerebral palsy like you to its various degrees, or someone else, they'll be more receptive to be like, hey, how's it going? How are you? As opposed to, ooh, I just have to walk away.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't like to think of myself as inspirational or anything, but I definitely think that I can be an example of someone with a disability who is relatable. As a first, second year teacher, I worried about being relatable for the kids just because I was a Spanish teacher and I was like, well, if they don't understand me, because I'm speaking Spanish to them, am I going to be relatable? And one of my coworkers says to me, you are by definition relatable. So you just don't worry about it. Do what you're going to do, and the kids will see you for your personality. And, they're not going to see you for anything else unless you let it get to you and let it limit you, which I never have. So.
And I found that the more you focus on your disability yourself, that kind of bleeds out into how other people handle your disability. Um, if you're very like if you are self-conscious, like I used to be, I noticed that a lot of people wouldn't want to talk to me about it because I didn't want to talk about it. So it became like an off limit subject where it was kind of awkward. It was like the elephant in the room. Like, but then once I realized like I have to live my life for me, and that part of me is being disabled. The more positively I talked about it, the more the more they could ask me questions, and the less it was in the way.
Right, because you were comfortable with it, therefore making other people more comfortable discussing it with you.
Yeah, and not everyone's going to be comfortable discussing it because it's a very personal thing. It's a very challenging thing. Um,
Agreed.
so they might not be ready to do that. And if anyone watching this isn't ready to talk about it, that's okay.
I think we were all at that point. I mean, like junior high age, when
Yeah.
everybody else struggles with being cool. Speaking for myself, I can say that I really struggle with myself and my own self-confidence and accepting, my disability. Once I got past that, it was different, but you've got to get through the rough patch first before you can really educate anybody else about it. And I think going back to what you said, Kyle, about not being ready to discuss disability, I think that also it depends on the personality, but it depends on the disability because I think especially for people who were not necessarily born disabled, the conversation might be different for them than it is for us because they're not going to have lived 25 years with this to come to terms to it. So I think we have to
Yeah.
keep that in mind too when we're talking to people, is that they might not be ready because they might have a totally different situation. Not because they don't care or
Yeah, they've lived both sides. We've only lived this side of it where it's like we're disabled. What are we gonna do about it? Like we've just got to continue pushing forward and living our best lives where they've not necessarily had to have worried about that yet, and then all of a sudden they do for whatever reason or circumstance, and then their world changes. And I personally couldn't even imagine that. Like it's taken me a long time to come to terms with that I was born disabled. So to not be, and then suddenly for whatever reason you are, that's its own beast to conquer, I think. But everyone gets to a certain point on their journey. It takes years. Everyone has a different, it just happens differently for everyone. My coming to terms didn't happen till high school. Kind of
Right.
after meeting you, to be honest. But
Oh, that's nice to hear. It kind of makes me feel good.
yeah,
Well,
let's see.
for me, it was a little earlier, but
Yeah,
I mean, junior high. But yeah, that's just a struggle time for all of us. So,
but yeah, I don't know if this channel. I wouldn't call this an educational channel, by any means. I'm not here to, I don't know all the medical definitions. I don't know the proper treatments. I don't know any of that. But this is just to show, you know, this is my life as a disabled man. And if people can learn something from it, then that's just kind of an added bonus. Um, I'm here to entertain in a way, but I don't know how well I'm doing with that, but we'll see.
well, I think just by, having this channel and having these types of discussions about our role as disabled people in society, you're doing something positive for everybody else, because if you're opening up the conversation, if someone else feels comfortable enough to, jump in and add to
Yeah,
that.
and that's my favorite part when people do comment on my videos. And like just recently I got a comment that was like, oh my God, like I can relate so much. And they went on to tell me a little bit of their story. And it was like, yeah, I don't know. It just felt good to know
Yeah,
that, I, you know, was relatable and enjoyable. And I don't know. I sparked something in them to want to reply to me, I guess, to help create a conversation.
which is
Because I,
exactly what we want to do, right?
yeah, because like I could sit and talk, like I could sit and make videos and upon videos, but if no one comments, then that takes the fun out of it, I think. Because then it's just me talking to, unless I bring on a guest, then it's just me talking to my phone. But, you know, the more I can spark conversation, it bring brings me a lot of joy.
It does for me too. It really does. It's not something that I thought that I would like talking about at this age, but even in past videos we've done together, talking about traveling and being a teacher with a disability, I really do enjoy sharing those experiences. And so I'm just thankful that you've brought me on your channel a couple times to be able to share those things.
I'm glad that you wanted to share them because, I don't know what it's like to travel abroad. But if I could bring you on YouTube in my living room and, you know, inspire another kid who's thinking about traveling abroad, who is scared to do it because they have a disability and can see that you've done it, it makes it like real for them. Like I can do it. Somebody else did it.
Sure.
Maybe they've never heard, they don't know somebody who has done it before. So if they watched that video of you going to Spain and thought, well, she did it, so can I, then, that's why I make them.
Right. I think it's really nice to see somebody else as a role model, although I don't really like to call myself that. It's nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to be a good one. I don't know.
I think we all are. I mean, all of us are for somebody, whether it be for family members that we have that are younger that, we want to shed disability in a positive light and be a good role model, or, students that we have, friends that we have.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just going to keep trudging on and keep sharing in the hopes that, by the time, in 10 years, if I'm, I don't know what I'm still doing, but put these conversations out there and help spark some sort of, shift in a positive way.
It's a good goal to have, just to keep putting the information out there, and hopefully we'll be able to help somebody else with it.
Yeah.
So from
And I wanted to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So from all of this, I feel like what I'm getting is that we're both saying that yes, definitely we should show disability in a positive light, and we should educate others about it. I'm just curious, do you have any thing you want to say for the other side of it? Should people with disabilities not be educating others about disability? What do you think?
I don't like that stance, because if we don't do it, then we're then hoping that the person themselves is going to choose to educate themselves. And I feel like maybe a lot of people will just say, it doesn't relate to me. Like, it's not a part of my life. I don't have to worry about it. So why do it?
I'm just playing devil's advocate here, because when I read the article that kind of sparked the idea for this whole conversation, I thought, well, of course we should be positive and show others about disability. Why would we do anything else? So I was just,
Yeah, because I don't think being negative, I mean, coming from experience of, not really accepting my disability for a while and being negative about it, like I said before, it made it like an off limits topic, and then, no change happened. It was just kind of stuck there, and yeah.
right. The negativity is definitely not helping.
It just further spreads the idea that there's those who aren't dealing with disability and those who are, when it's like we're all the same. We all have our own challenges.
Agreed. I mean, two people without disabilities are just as different as two people who have disabilities. Yeah. And, the only thing where I could see, for me personally, why people wouldn't feel like they need to educate others about disability has to do with the questions that people ask about us. I've had some experiences in my life where I just feel like people don't go about asking questions in the right way. And that makes me not want to answer their questions and not want to educate them, because they're not doing it in a way that is kind or open in any way.
Yeah, that is the hard part. When you're talking to someone that really doesn't want to listen to you, or, treat you with respect, then that is off-putting. And my advice to those that have dealt with that would just be, try the next person, because not everyone's response is going to be that negative. And we can't change everybody, we're just trying to change some.
Agreed. We're trying to change the ones that we can. And, if we come away from talking to somebody with something positive and we feel like they've learned something, we've learned something, we're doing good. But we also can't beat ourselves up about the people that just stare or ask ignorant questions. Those are the people that I feel like I don't need to work to educate because they've already made their mind up about it. So,
Yeah, once you've realized that, oh, they don't care what I have to say, I just move on. It's like,
right, because there's
yeah.
always going to be haters out there that are going to call us crippled and dumb and, all the other terminology that there are, but you don't want to let it get to you either. Yeah, but the questions for me, that would be the one negative. Like I said, that's the one thing that really turns me off from educating people about disability, because it's like, if you're going to come up to me and assume something and be rude, then we don't have much of a conversation to have.
And it's one of those things where you have to be ready for it. If you're not to the point where you are comfortable dealing with rough questions, then it's not the time for you to speak up. And hopefully you'll get there, at some point, and that's okay. But if you are someone that is comfortable, then I say the more people you talk to, the better. But if you're not comfortable and it brings you a lot of fear or anxiety, then it's just not your time.
I agree. We do have to come to that spot of being ready to do that. And I just think to situations in my life where people ask things and I didn't know what to say, because before that point, most people didn't ask questions. Most kids didn't ask questions because their mom would be like, don't stare, or, don't bother her. So I think part of not being ready is that we just maybe haven't come into contact with people who are that curious. Not that we don't want to talk about it.
Right, because I have run into people where it's like, stop staring at him, honey. It's like, no, it's okay. Like, I'd rather have the opportunity to talk to them and hopefully they'll take something away from it than just automatically close that door. Be like, okay, keep walking. Because then that kid or that person's always going to think that, well, I should just never talk to someone with a disability because it's going to bother them.
Right. And I think part of the education about disabilities can start at home too, especially for us. I think we, educate people in our immediate family definitely about disability, but there's a lot that parents can do too to let their kids know, that disability is an okay thing and it's not something to be scared of.
I agree. And they don't even need to know the specifics of the disability, just generally, letting their kids know that if someone walks differently than you or uses equipment that they don't use, that's okay. That's just how things go for them. It's how it works. And they're not any less of a person. They're a person who uses a cane or a walker or a wheelchair. And they're a person, is what I'd most like kids to just know. Anyone that has a disability is a person, and you should treat them as such with respect and dignity. But I don't mean to get on my soapbox.
It's okay.
But anything else you'd like to add? I think we've had quite a good conversation, I think.
Yeah. I had a lot more to say about this topic than I thought. I just when I read that article, thought it would be interesting. So I'm really glad that we had a chance to talk about it.
And I have never read the article, so I don't know what article she read, but that's why I don't like to necessarily script these kinds of things, just because that I feel like that almost limits you in a way. When these just allow you to, whatever comes to mind, it frees it up, I think. But
yeah, if I can find the article, I will see if I can get it linked with the video just so that people can look at it.
Yeah, I'd like to read it too.
It was just an interesting perspective. I never thought about the question of whether or not we should educate others. I never thought about me being me as a way to educate others, but like we've been talking about, it inherently is whether we want it to be or not. So
Yeah, just by showing that we're living our lives, some people do think, oh, well, they don't live much of a life because they're disabled. It's like, well, you're wrong.
that's a stereotype for sure, and certainly not true for everybody.
Yeah. They want to use these blanket ideas to cover everyone when you can't.
But that's why we're here, right?
Yeah. Fighting the good fight.
Indeed.
Well, thanks for coming on here with me and being my special guest.
Oh, of course. We're just here quarantined. So what else do we have to do?
Yeah, it's been rough. But everybody stay safe out there.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you. I will see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Awkward.